very first guest of the Wide Marketing Podcast, John Behling, who was our guinea pig back in season 1, has come back to join us as our very first co-host for season 2. So before we get introduce Elizabeth Brown from Little League, I want to talk with John real quick to see, John, what have you been up to since we had you on the show last?
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me back, Rusty. Still plugging away at Clearly Canadian, having a good year. You know, hot summers are good for the beverage industry, and I still continue to work on other entrepreneurial projects within the beverage industry. It'll be interesting because sports somehow always seems to get back into the beverage industry, so I never go too far away from sports. So.
It's a good thing that you actually brought up sports, because today we've got Elizabeth Brown, who's the CMO of Little League, joining us. So they just wrapped up the actual Little League World Series. This will be a fun conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely follow it when my kids are grown and gone. So as soon as it hits TV, I start following the tournament, and we've got all Americans on the phone. So it's always nice to see a team from the USA bring home the championship, of course.
It is. So let's go ahead and let's welcome Liz to the podcast. So Liz, welcome to the Wide Marketing Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Very excited to talk to you both.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun conversation. So we're recording this in September. Y'all just wrapped up your Little League World Series last month. Congratulations. It was an awesome event.
Thank you. 73rd World Series, and ended at the end of August, and we all had a couple days to rest, and now we're back at it planning next year.
It was probably a very nice couple of days to be able to just kind of unwind after that.
It is. It definitely is. But it's also, when you're in the moment of the event, it's so fun to be involved in this program and to see the kids having an awesome time and really having great experiences, win or lose. And so we do miss a little bit of it once it's over as well.
The TV coverage has been phenomenal.
Our partnership with ESPN allows us to have, really quite a bit of involvement in terms of just working together on what the presentation of the games looks like, and obviously the focus on the kids and their families and the sort of outcome of the games. This year in particular, we had over 340 games on ESPN's family of networks. We were able to really work together to distribute games from not only Williamsport, but the regionals. And we have actually 6 other World Series events that have happened. So ESPN Plus, the new sort of direct-to-consumer app, was really a staple in that distribution process. And so for the months of July and August, to get our sort of product out there and let folks around the country and frankly around the world see what we bring to life and what these kids can do is pretty amazing. So both softball and baseball really had a nice stage for those 6 to 7 weeks this summer.
That's awesome. I love the backstories.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many human interest stories that can be told from every team, even ones that are not on television along the way. I mean, we start our tournament really towards the end of June. Internationally, it starts a little bit earlier than that, depending on the countries that are playing, up through the tournament. But there's just community stories, there's family stories, there's hardship, there's friendship, there's so many stories that are told. And we, as an organization, do our best to tell those stories and work with folks like ESPN and Major League Baseball to help bring that to life as well. Because it's important for us to really get beyond the game when that story is being told.
It humanizes it.
Exactly.
Was this I don't recall, but was this the first year that you also had the major league games played, or had that been done in the past?
So this was actually the third year. Speaking
third
of
year,
on your shirt there.
It's as I keep weeping as they continue to lose games back to back. So.
Cubs versus Pirates this year. No, I mean we've been doing it now for 3 years. It was an idea that came to life through some collaboration, really at the top of both organizations, and it is an amazing experience for the Little League players and for the Major League players, because we spend most of the time during the day with the Major League players here at our complex, watching the Little Leaguers play and having interactions, sitting in the stands and so forth. And then they get to go to the game at night, and the environment is not a Major League ballpark. It's a minor league ballpark that they play in, outfitted accordingly. But it's such a intimate experience for the players to still interact and kind of leave with just some amazing memories. I actually had a conversation with one of the coaches from the Northwest team this year when the players were on site, and he just said, my kids will never forget this for the rest of their lives. So that's our goal, is to create the memories.
I also love the stories, in this day and age with a lot of negative press with so many professional athletes. The commentators that you use, they obviously all played Little League, growing up. And they seem to turn into going back to when they were kids and being a kid all over again. And I mean, do the kids get to interact with the media personnel as well, the retired players?
Yeah, all of it, depending on sort of the opportunities that present themselves. They may be interviewed after a game in our sort of press conference area that we have, a mini little press center, if you will, or, being interviewed by some ESPN talent and personalities. The nice thing is, and this year in particular, there were some articles about just our participants playing multiple sports and activities outside of just Little League. And the talent that comes here focuses on all of it. They ask them questions about their Little League experience, but also about, what life is like at home and what other things they're interested in, whether it's music or the arts or other sports. And, we believe in all of that there should be the opportunity to have a well-rounded experience in addition to what they're doing in Little League. So the talent does a great job of drawing that out as well.
In the age that we're living in, how are y'all focused on getting parents to understand the importance of why kids should be playing sports? What's team sports in particular?
Yeah, so I would go back a little bit. I've been here for about 10 years now. And in the first couple of years I was here, the nice thing about Little League is we are very focused on evaluating, what's happening with parents, what's happening in youth sports, what's happening socially as well. And so we've done our own research. We rely on some partnerships that we have to kind of just keep telling us, here's the changing trends, and whether it's parenting styles or kids' activities or choices, community, and so forth. And we pay attention to it, and we actively, create strategies to help communicate about Little League and its place sort of in society today. So it's everything from, when a parent is in season, we are actively communicating to them about why Little League, why it makes sense, why they chose this program, what it means to be a part of a community like Little League on an international scale, to then also helping our leagues who are sort of autonomous and running the program in their communities in a way that makes sense for that particular community. We help them identify ways to also communicate to the parents, to help educate them on what this program means, not just in the moment in that practice or game, but like 5 years down the road, when they look back on their Little League experience, what experience do you want them to remember, right? Do you want them to remember the score, or do you want them to remember that they met their best friend, Patrick, in the dugout and got that interaction, and that's where it all started? So our goal is to, number one, create relevancy, and that comes through in all the different tactics we use through social media, through video content, through email, through, a multi sort of faceted approach to communications and marketing, but also in the relevancy of the program itself and making sure the programming can be applicable in different communities, can be translatable, and really easy for folks to understand and adopt to create a really good experience for those kids that are participating in any community that they may be saying they have a Little League program.
You talked about the communities and the independent leagues, and I would venture to guess, and because I know what it works up to, a culmination of kind of the big event execution. So then maybe in people's minds, they go, well, what are you doing for the other 9 months of the year, 10 months of the year? Could you explain a little bit of everything that happens before the television execution? Because I don't think a lot of people realize what has to be done before all that TV time happens.
Yeah, I think actually the question that we get, all of us get most of the time, especially this time of year, is what do you do the other 9 months of the year? Exactly. And so it is actually, we would answer, it is probably the most important time of year for us, because we are evaluating, reflecting on the sort of programming itself, rules, regulations, and so forth. But we're also gathering feedback from our local leagues on what they need. The administration of a program like this from a volunteer seat is something that we consistently look at. We want to make lives of volunteers as easy as they can be so that they can focus on putting that really good product out on the field. So we do a lot of training, education. We bring our most senior level volunteers in for some meetings. This year in particular, we have 5 in the US that we're going to be operating in the beginning of 2020. We put out a lot of content to help sort of guide those volunteers along the way about getting organized so that they are recruiting and registering players and families, and then getting that sort of cycle of participants into the program so they're ready to go when their season may begin. And, we have warm climates that begin in December, January, and then obviously we have colder climates that may begin a little bit later. So, and then just to sort of wrap that up, the beginning of the tournament is really beginning in early June, and that time of year is incredibly busy for all leagues. And then for us, from an oversight and management standpoint, to get everything organized to lead into what is the final games that you see on television.
How many kids are playing at Little League?
There's about 2 million on an annual basis playing.
Wow.
Every year we're getting sort of a new crop in, and a new batch is matriculating out of the program. But yeah, our focus, quite honestly, in sort of marketing and developing the program is on T-ball and coach pitch, those youngest age groups where you have the opportunity to really bring them in, give them that experience, help them to learn the game, but also start to love the game, because that's probably the more important piece at that age, is having a good time and learning what it means to be coached and learning about what it means to be on a team and follow directions and all of those things. So we do spend quite a bit of time on our T-ball program and on our coach pitch program, where it's the infancy of the experience for those participants and frankly for coaches as well.
I saw softball too.
Yeah, we have a softball program in place. Actually, 3 of the divisions of softball are televised from a tournament perspective, but softball's been in place for quite a while with us. It is a growing program. It is a program that offers the same benefits of Little League and sort of the halo that we have, but also, appeals with some rules and some opportunities for girls to just experience the game and have a great opportunity as well in their community.
Notice that you were an athlete. Now, you didn't play softball or baseball, but you were a field hockey player, right?
I played softball. Wasn't great at softball, but I played.
Okay.
Yes, I chose a different sort of stick and ball sport. I played field hockey up through college, and just the translation of that into my job now is just the idea of team. And I just believe in sports, the sports experience for young people as far as they want to take it. I have 2 kids of my own. They're starting to experience it themselves. It's really great to watch, but team sports is really important. It teaches you so many things. And so, yeah, field hockey was my path.
I will say that my initial conversation with Rusty was about following your passion. So I'm going to ask the question of, as I looked at your career background, I'm guessing the answer is you wanted to work in sports for the rest of your life.
I wanted to work in sports. I probably didn't start out in the place that I am now, but yes, I sort of went to school and with the intention of I want to stay involved in sports. I originally thought I wanted to be a coach. Maybe someday I'll end up there. But I, came out of sort of the business side and said, I think there's something on this business side of sports that I want to learn more about. And that's sort of what led me to where I am.
Well, good leaders can always coach, so I can see that.
It's fun too, especially when it's not your kids to coach.
Exactly.
That's a good segue into kind of your story, your career journey, and kind of what led you to your role there at Little League.
Yeah. So I guess I would start, and not to go back too far, but just I'm from a sort of sports-minded family. So my dad was a coach, many different sports. He was an administrator of our high school. So I ran track for him. My sister ran cross country, just the athletic importance of that in my sort of childhood. My grandfather was a Major League Baseball scout. So there was always just sports and team sports really in the background. And so after college, I had some opportunities to just get involved in events and that were all sort of surrounding, whether it was sponsorship or sort of that fan experience at really big events, music, entertainment, and so forth. And I just loved it. I mean, the idea of a really hard setup and then interacting with the general public and then moving on to the next one was amazing. And one of the events that I wasn't personally involved in running, but our company ran, was around the 99 World Cup, Women's World Cup events that were in the US. We did a big sort of experiential exhibition around that for a client, and just the excitement and attitudes back then around that 99 team, which came back around this year, sort of the reminders of it when the women were in it. That led me to continue to want to just pursue being involved in sports a little bit deeper, and led me to some sponsorship sort of consulting roles at some agencies where I got to work with a lot of different clients with a lot of different goals, all different, all unique in terms of how they approach sponsorship. And then just really got I call it the stars aligned, I guess is the way to say it, where this Little League opportunity came up on my radar. And I said, it's really interesting. I think that would be really important for me to take a hard look at, because not only is it mission driven and it's youth driven, it actually would play up to some of my skill sets. And so the stars aligned 10 years ago, and I ended up getting the job, and I've been here ever since, really kind of pursuing that mission for myself as well.
I can relate. I think I have to agree with you when something comes across and you scratch your head and do the, oh, wow, is that really available? Frankly, when I went to House of Blues, I'm a big music fan. And when that came up, then I did a little, OMG moment and said, wow, this would be really cool. So
Yep.
I can relate.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the next big evolution of Little League?
So I see us doing a few things. On my plate specifically, we're actually in the middle of a major initiative to sort of refresh and rebrand the program. So we've been working really closely with an agency, really, I would say, refreshing our sort of mission and message and communication points, which, most people would say they understand what Little League is, but we want to make sure it resonates with tomorrow's parents too, right? So we've been working on that for the last 6 to 9 months, and then really coming out with some new creative, an actual campaign to drive some participation and some interest that will launch next year. And then leading into 2021, it's the 75th time the Little League World Series will have been played in Williamsport. So we'll be celebrating that in a big way, as well as the end of this past August, we announced that we're actually expanding the Little League World Series to include 20 teams and going up from 16 teams that we're currently at. And we're expanding the Little League Softball World Series, adding another 2 teams. So just the idea that we're giving more kids the opportunity to have the experience of this event is really important to us. It's what people really know us for, and so we're able to really use our resources to create that experience. And so 2021 will be a big year for us, including the rebrand that will start next year, but those are some major initiatives that are sort of at play. Also, our relationship with MLB continues to just grow. The Little League Classic continues, as well as we are in a sort of deeper business partnership with them around sponsorship to help grow programming and opportunities in local communities through the network that MLB has. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are brewing, if you will, in the next 2 years for us.
You brought up something that was on my list of questions to ask you about, was what is the alignment between Little League and Major League Baseball?
Yeah, so I would tell you it's never been stronger than it ever has been. We've started off, we always have been connected, whether it's with events that we do and sort of initiatives that we've run together, but probably in the last 4 or 5 years since Commissioner Manfred took over, he made youth a priority through some initiatives that he created, the Play Ball initiative, which the whole goal is getting kids to try the game. And so what we know collectively, once they try it, they likely sign up for an opportunity. And so working together to make Little League one of those opportunities is the goal. And then really on the sort of business side to try to create touch points all the way from local families and local communities who will end up being fans of the game, potentially getting those Little League families to really evaluate and focus on MLB as well. We create sort of joint initiatives. So one example of that is at almost all of the major league ballparks, they host what was called Little League Days, where they actually have a dedicated day. And we help promote and sort of drive attendance. But the Little Leaguers come out, they might get an experience of walking on the field or maybe watching batting practice or even meeting some of the players before the game. But it's the idea that Little League is creating this experience with Major League Baseball that you really can't get anywhere else through this program. So that's just one of the many things we work on together. But the idea of being connected from the youngest point in the sport all the way up through the majors is really important. And long term, hopefully will drive more fan avidity and more attendance and just more fans of the game generally.
On that same note, you mentioned earlier some of the stories that come out and they're always great stories. And I remember the young lady from, I think, Philadelphia, who was the pitcher years ago.
Sure, Bonnie Davis. Yep.
I don't know if she's in high school now or maybe even a freshman in college. Do you ever bring some of those stories back, and not to, leverage it too much because they still could be kids, but do you ever bring those stories back to resurrect?
Yeah, actually, Monet Davis was here this year. She's entering her first year of college.
I knew it. I was close.
Yep.
Okay.
She was part of, actually, ESPN did a really neat initiative with a kids broadcasting team during one of the games where they had some kids who have aspirations of being in broadcasting actually called the game. Yeah. It was really a neat experience. It did really well from a sort of viewership standpoint. But anyway, yes, we focus on tracking alumni to the extent we can because, and it's not alumni that are necessarily famous, but alumni
Right.
that have made a difference, have turned into good citizens, that have, given back or done, some things in their communities or for the greater good. So it's important. It shows that Little League maybe had a small impact on their overall development or their overall path. Folks that, end up in the sport, obviously there's a different tie-in that we can talk about, but yeah, we do try to mine for those stories. And sometimes we don't learn about them for a while. We might read a story and do some due diligence to see if we have a roster of theirs or old records in our museum or something that connects to make sure we validated it. But it's important to be able to show the impact that the program has. And we can do that really well through some of those alumni storytelling.
You are doing a wonderful job over there with Little League. It's been fun to watch. I really did. We enjoy watching it this August. As we kind of get to the tail end of the episode, I don't think John and I have screwed it up quite yet, which is a good thing. But I did want to ask, go into our speed round. It's something we've added for season 2. Just some random questions I'm going to throw at you. And John, you may get a curveball here. I might throw one at you. So be ready.
Okay.
All right, Liz, you ready?
Yeah, I'll do my best. Yes.
All right. What's your favorite city in the U.S.?
St. Petersburg, Florida.
It's hard to argue with that. Name one of the 7 dwarfs.
Grumpy.
Okay. John?
Doc.
There's a Doc?
Yes.
Yeah, he was kind of he was the leader. He was the leader.
Oh, okay. It's a good thing you didn't ask me that question.
So not fair.
Is it better to ask for permission or beg for forgiveness?
Ask for permission.
Interesting.
John?
I'm going beg for forgiveness.
Okay. I have a big beg for forgiveness too. Like, just do it. And last thing for you, Liz, if you had one piece of advice that you wish you had been given when you were starting out your career, what would that be?
Stop for a minute and just enjoy it. Don't always be at such the pace of moving so fast that you don't just recognize what's in front of you.
That's very good advice, especially after you wrap up a Little League World Series.
Absolutely. And a little advice from my mom, stop and smell the roses is a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. It's good for not only work, but also life in general. So that's great advice. So, well, thank you both for being on. Liz, it was wonderful being able to talk to you and for you to learn more about Little League. And John, as always, it's good to see you and be able to have you on and have your perspective on stuff. So
thank you very much.
I appreciate it.